Hello, and welcome to Transmission X. Tonight, the date, December 24th, 2023. I'm your host, Nate Allen, and this is the seminal episode, the very first transmission. A transmission is a signal that is sent out from one place or person to another. It is my hope that this signal provide you a beacon of which you may tune into to find what it is that was meant to find you. If you have found this frequency, it is not an error, so stay tuned, but most importantly, be ready. Tonight's transmission is an important one, for this is the 117th anniversary of the very first transmission ever sent out on the airwaves. A lot has happened since Christmas Eve 1906. A lot has changed in obvious ways. Political upheaval, war, conspiracies, changes in power, crooked politics, all of which are very important and warrant future transmissions. But tonight's transmission is regarding a phenomenon, a little more clandestine, a little more supernatural. This phenomenon is altering reality as we know it, and for the most part, is glossed over, even by those who are aware of it. The phenomenon I'll be shining a light upon tonight is known as the Mandela Effect. The term Mandela Effect arose in 2009 after supernatural investigator and Comic-Con goer Fiona Broome had quite a few conversations with fellow attendees. These conversations were centered around historical figure Nelson Mandela. For those of you unaware of who Nelson Mandela was, he was a political activist who would spend 27 years in prison for political offenses, but then rise to notoriety and power and become president of South Africa in 1994, after sharing the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 for his work in dismantling the apartheid. The interesting thing about those dates is that Fiona Broome and many others remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Not only could they remember his death, but many could distinctly remember his widow giving a speech on television regarding Nelson Mandela and his death. And so, after realizing that they were in fact wrong, but coming to grips with the fact that a lot of people remembered the exact same event, the Mandela Effect, as you know it, was born. Fiona has a website, MandelaEffect.com, and now it redirects you to her more recent YouTube channel, and since she has authored quite a few books on the subject. Although Fiona and her website, and people in forums all across the web, made the Mandela Effect popular, it is not the first time the effect itself, or the belief Nelson Mandela had died in the 1980s, had been brought to the attention of the public via the media. In 2001, a caller called in on the popular late-night radio program Coast to Coast, hosted by Art Bell. I happen to have the recording. Give it a listen.
I'm Art Bell.
You're listening.
Yeah.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, and I'm listening to you on Talk 650 in Sacramento.
KSTE, of course.
Yeah, and I remember back, quite a while ago, I guess, you talked about how some people were having memories that possibly Nelson Mandela had passed away when he was in prison.
You bet. And memories of other things that never, that as far as we know, historically never actually happened.
Okay, well, when I heard the Nelson Mandela part, I said, you know what? That does sort of sound familiar.
Huh.
But today, I had the same exact feeling come over me. I was watching, I think it was Access Hollywood or Extra. I can't remember which one it was.
Right.
And they were talking about Robert Duvall's new movie. And I said, I thought he died. And I remember watching a special about him, and it was showing all of his different roles. And I remember saying to my fiancé, oh, that was my favorite role when he played an apostle, because I thought that was really awesome. But I swear I remember...
Well, here's the thing, ma'am. Here's the thing. If time travel is real, most of those who say it would be possible say that if an event were changed, the world would continue there'd be another little bubble created, and everything would continue down a completely different road, and that there would be as many of these alternate universes created as there have been tamperings with time. So
I remember Dr. Kaku saying that.
there you are. So maybe that's what, but still, you might have a vague remembrance of what really did happen in another timeline.
The caller and Art both agreed that a while before this show, they had in fact discussed what today is now known as the Mandela Effect. I searched for hours for the particular show Art was referencing, but to no avail. If anyone has the episode, please send it to transmissionx@mail.com. If you listened closely, both definitions were provided of what and how the Mandela Effect is defined today. Art Bell mentions memories of things that never actually happened, and the caller references a feeling that one gets when they experience knowing something is real and has happened, and then finding out that they have been wrong all along. Art also mentions time travel, changes in alternate realities, and all of these effects from what is that feeling that the caller alluded to. That feeling one gets when they know something is true, only to find out that it isn't true at all. And alternate realities are brought up because how is that possible? For example, if someone were to ask you your name, you would know your name. You have known it your entire life. What if they told you that going back to your birth records, that was no longer your name? That is what this feeling is like. That's how strong it is. For the most part, popular culture just seems to push the Mandela Effect aside like it really is just one giant case of misremembering. But some insist they remember what they remember, and something else must be causing changes in reality itself. Examples of the Mandela Effect have exponentially increased since 2012, and I'll provide examples of a few of the more popular ones for context, and to see if you get the feeling, to see if you are affected by the Mandela Effect. Are you familiar with Fruit of the Loom, the brand? If you are, you most likely remember the logo. Take a minute, picture the logo, place it in your imagination, as clear as you can possibly place it. Put it there and hold it and think about it. Most of you know the logo. All right, you have it? What do you remember? The majority of people remember the logo being a cornucopia filled with fruit, with the brand title placed right underneath. If you remember this, you would be wrong. There has never been a cornucopia in the logo, only simply the fruit placed above the title, Fruit of the Loom. Another popular, well-known example is that of Curious George, a fictional monkey and main character of popular children's books as well as cartoons and films. If you happen to grow up in the 80s or even the 90s, you most likely remember the Curious George books being a big hit at every book fair, which means you should be able to picture Curious George himself. Okay, you have it? Picture Curious George as you remember him. Did Curious George have a tail? Now, many people, undoubtedly and without hesitation, answer with an easy yes. But that would be wrong. He has never had a tail. Okay, moving forward in time just a bit, do you remember Pikachu? Arguably the most popular and well-known species of Pokemon. The yellow little character full of electricity. Now, do you remember him with a tail? He did have a tail, but did his tail have a black stripe around it? The answer is, it did not. If you are like most people, You would argue that he most certainly did have a stripe around his tail, but that is, in fact, wrong, and always has been. One that seems to make even the most ardent skeptic scratch their head is the immensely popular children's book series known as the Berenstain Bears. These were extremely popular with children in the 80s. If you remember these books, I want you to picture the word Berenstain in the title. How was Berenstain spelled? When most people answer this question, they remember it being spelled Berenstein. And those that do also pronounce it Berenstain. With that being said, that is in fact, again, incorrect. It is actually spelled Berenstein and pronounced accordingly, Berenstain Bears. Okay, now let's get a little more complex and find speech that seems to be offering the same effect. In the movie Star Wars, the incredibly successful franchise, if you have seen it, what was the famous line spoken by Darth Vader? Most people, when posed with this question, answer immediately, "Luke, I am your father." That answer, in all actuality, is incorrect. The quote is, "No, I am your father." These and many, many other examples leave people questioning themselves, their memories, and some even reality itself. From the examples mentioned and many, many other examples, you will find one, once you look into this phenomenon, that will eventually floor you, and you will notice the many changes and alterations usually have to do with either pictures, words, and symbols. Pictures, words, and symbols. Lines in movies, advertising, titles, spelling, all very interesting. And most people say, "What's the big deal?" Well, letters are symbols, and when those symbols combine with frequency, you have words. And words are utterances of those symbols that produce specific sounds and variations which, when spoken, can create feelings, which in their very essence are vibrations, frequencies, and reality itself is being experienced because we all vibrate at similar frequencies. And if I am speaking on reality itself, you either are one that sees a light at the end of the proverbial tunnel based on some semblance of order and hope, or you simply do not. Let's look at how this almost subconscious belief of order, structure, and light affects reality and events in this experience. And stick with me, I will tie the Mandela Effect to an even further change or alteration, and it goes deeper than just advertising children's books and movies. The changes in the symbols, pictures, and sounds may not be as innocent as they seem. Stay tuned to the next transmission, and we'll go deeper with the Mandela Effect than you ever imagined. In the spirit of 1906, December 24th, Christmas Eve, I'll send you off with a Christmas song of my own. Have a very Merry Christmas.